Welcome to Forward Progress, powered by the Hammer Betting Network. I am your host, Rob Pizzola, joined as always by my co-host on Sunday nights here, Clive Bixby. We're live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel and live on Twitter at Forward NFL as well. This is the show where we recap the entire week that was. We'll look ahead to Monday Night Football, and then we will play a guessing game of where lines will move over the course of the next week for those Week 13 NFL games. If you can't stick around for the full show, no problem at all. The episode will be available in full when you wake up tomorrow morning. It's also available in podcast form on Spotify and on Apple Music. Clive Bixby, how did the day treat you today?
So, I managed to lose a total in the first half of this game, so I guess I'm done for the week now. That didn't work out. So 1-2 on totals, and then I had a bigger bet on the Jets today that I got a good number before some of that news. So overall profitable, just not what I would have liked for myself. What about you?
Oh, you had a profitable day. I take that any day of the week. Whether or not you lose a total in the first half doesn't matter. I took a loss today. I'm sorry to those who tuned into the pizza buffet this morning. It was a particularly bad day of just giving out picks on a Sunday morning. My week wasn't really all that bad, but it feels like I lost so much more than I actually did because of the manner in which I lost some of these games. And it'll balance out over time. I get it. But holy geez, when you play high volume in the NFL and you have one of these weeks where it's like teams are going for 2-point conversions at the end of the game, the Tampa Bay Bucks, that David Njoku one-handed catch, and then how that all unfolded. The New Orleans Saints, I don't even know how many drives they had into the red zone in the second half and in the fourth quarter there. It feels so much worse than it actually was. Losing day, but it just felt like a catastrophic day at the, when all was said and done.
Yeah, those, from somebody with a lot of NBA background, I don't know if you deal with this all that much in hockey. I would assume you do, maybe with overtimes and things like that. I mean, when you have high volume days and like you're getting down to, fouling and free throws and just like all this weird stuff where you're just a coin flip at the end, it's just, it wears on you. And when it gets really, really weird, it's tough.
I don't know if I've always felt this way, or I'm not having the best NFL season. So maybe it's just like maybe I'm just noticing it now, and this has always happened. And I've just been on the other side of the random variance. But I'm watching games again today. This is like a constant theme, right? And I'm like, holy geez, probably 3/4 of these games today, if you bet them on the spread, we're just a giant.
I'm lost or if Rob's lost. So was that me or was that you that got lost?
I don't know. One of us is lost. I think we're both back now. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can. We're good.
All right. So I just like 3/4 of the games today, if you bet them on the spread, they end up being just like complete coin flips in some capacity. And I mean, go back to Thursday, right? Look at how the Cowboys did not cover the spread against the Giants on Thursday. Not only they missed the field goal, but then the Giants have to drive the entire field to score a touchdown. Patriots and Vikings, you get a special teams touchdown in that game as well, which completely swings things. So I just feel like, I mean, I'll be happy. The week that I'm on the right side of all that variance, I won't even bring it up again, but it feels like some of these games are just gross at the end.
Yeah. And, we're dealing with small samples in the NFL. Like you do not get like that whole long-term like stretch for that variance to kind of equal itself out. It's very difficult.
It really is. But listen, I want to make this is forward progress. We'll keep it moving. I'm not going to just completely dwell on every single bet that I've ever lost over the course of the season. But holy geez, man, these 2-point conversions, like talk about when I did not need a team to go for 2. Let's start where we always start. Anything you felt strongly about going into this week that you think was solidified by this week's games?
I mean, the Broncos offense is still terrible. So back to our show last week where I said if, the total was 35, that I would take the over. That was one of my losses. I got an over 34.5 on Monday. I'm like, I guess I have to take it. I said I would. So big missed field goal from McManus from like 56 yards. That was one. I didn't expect. If Fields didn't play, I knew the Bears would be as bad as they were today. So once that news came, that made it a little bit more easy to pull the trigger there. And then lastly, Houston defense is so bad. Dolphins actually did a very smart thing, giving Tua a little bit of a rest. I know people had to probably sweat out that spread that they didn't want to. But, I think that was a smart thing that McCarthy did there. Those were the three things that really took hold of what I expected to happen.
So I match you on a couple of those as well. So I had marked down that Houston is a dead team prior to this week. And, listen, I'm not gonna spend a full 10 minutes talking about public bet percentages and stuff like that. But I heard a lot of that stuff this morning about how there's way too much money on the Dolphins, so on and so forth. And I did not want to lose that game because the Dolphins were up 30-0. They pulled all their starters. I can only imagine what I would have heard had the Texans came back in that game. But Houston is a dead team. They're horrible. They're by far the worst team in the league. Lovie Smith, I don't know if he's checked out or not, or he's just not a good coach. They suck. So that was solidified. I focused on the Jets side of the Jets-Bears game. You more focused on the Bears side and that the Bears are going to suffer without Fields. For me, it was Mike White is going to be an upgrade over Zach Wilson. And they can win this game by margin if he's just average. And he played a pretty solid game today because the Bears defense is terrible. So I felt I read those games really well. Last week I talked about two teams, and I think it's always important to bring up what we talked about the previous week and hold ourselves accountable for this stuff. I said the Giants are not as good as their record indicates, and I'm going to stick to that. They cover the spread, but they're not as good as their record indicates. I think it's very clear in that Cowboys game that they're not even close to what they went into that game with in terms of their record. I said the same about the Vikings and how I think they match up really poorly with high-pressure teams. That one I can take a step back on because they move the ball on a very good Patriots defense. I'm still not ready to say that the Vikings are the be-all and end-all. I still think that they're slightly above average team. They benefit from a kick return touchdown in that game. They benefit from the fact that New England goes over 3 in the red zone in that game. New England 7.4 yards per play. The Vikings just 5.4. I think that the Vikings got lucky in winning that game and covering that spread, but offensively they looked a lot better than I thought they would. Excuse me. So that's kind of where I'm standing this week. Can Lovie, Scott asks, can Lovie be both checked out and a bad coach? I think that's actually the most likely outcome here, Clive.
Yeah, probably. I mean, as a former hardcore Bears fan before I really got into sports betting, and then all my allegiances went right out the window. My allegiance then became the money. He has a good defensive mind, but when he was in Chicago, I mean, he had all the talent in the world. He had the perfect personnel to play his defense. It's just not going to work for him with the talent that he has, and he has no offensive mind. So put those two things together, and it is just an absolute shit show in Houston. I don't know what I would do if I was a Texans fan.
We're going to get to Cleveland and Houston next week, which is the Deshaun Watson return game. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts on that one because this is a relative unknown for the both of us now, right? We have like a new team in market, essentially. I know it's still the Browns, but it's a new quarterback. We're going to have to figure out that adjustment and also whether or not the market just downgrades Houston even more than it has right now. So we'll talk about that one coming up as well. I don't know if this is true. I do have it up, but I'm not watching the game. Aaron Rodgers to the locker room. Sounds like that would be interesting. I have second half under. So listen, I hope Aaron Rodgers is okay.
Can points come off the board so that I can get back to the full game under, or no? That doesn't work that way.
They have to restart the game from scratch with Jordan Love. The Eagles still might score 47 though to put it over.
That's true. Jordan Love might also throw a nice pick 6 or 2 in there.
Right. Okay, let's move on. Anything this week that greatly changed your opinion of a team?
That greatly changed my opinion of a team. I mean, the Raiders I still have as an average team, and the Seahawks I still kind of have as an average team. So that result didn't surprise me all that much. Just these offensive output in the Eagles-Packers game, and I think that's really the high end of the range. I'm not saying I was on the right side. I'm not saying that at all. But what the Cardinals did today was impressive. Impressive is not the right word. I would have thought the Chargers would have won by some margin today. I couldn't pull the trigger when I saw 2.5 today. I didn't do it, but I kind of felt good for people that I knew that were betting that side.
I had Cardinals 4.5 and Chargers 2.5 today. So there was a point where I really thought the Chargers were en route to winning by 4, which would have been fantastic. Bigger play on the Chargers, though. So that 2-point conversion was not all that happy with that. Couple things for me. The Seahawks defense looked horrible today. Very bad. Prior to the bye week, they lost to the Bucs. They made the Bucs offense also look a lot better than they've looked recently as well. Wondering if that's something there, because honestly, the criticism of Seattle for a large majority this year was they've played nobody, and they hadn't, and their defense is putting up good numbers. Now we're seeing like the complete polar opposite with them. It was horrible today. Like Josh Jacobs had a massive day today. I'm just taking a look here at the defensive numbers for Seattle as I pull them up. Oh my God. The Raiders had 576 net yards today, 7.5 yards per play, 51% success rate. Like just a really, really ugly game for Seattle's defense. And now I have no idea what to do. I don't know what Seattle is.
So that was my third total of the day. That one was over 47.5 because I had the Seahawks rated a lot worse on defense, I think, than the market does. And when you look at their numbers coming into the game, I mean, Seattle's median total was 45. Raiders was 46.5. So not huge numbers, but to your point, who have they played and what offenses have they made look good that aren't good? They've done that. So granted, I didn't think they'd put up 74. I didn't slam the alt totals there, but I didn't mind that the market didn't move as much for me on that one.
That was one. The second is like I don't know. The Ravens are a team that I can't figure out, especially why they can't ever close games. Like this is again now, Lamar Jackson throws that bomb to Deshaun Jackson. By the way, the offense for the Ravens looked horrible for a large majority of today. They didn't really have like a downfield presence. Finally, amazing throw by Lamar to hit Deshaun. They score a touchdown to go ahead, get the 2-point conversion. They're up 27-20, and they just, again, cannot put the game away. They play a prevent defense. I don't know if this is like a big downgrade at defensive coordinator. They now have Mike McDonald there, no Wink Martindale anymore. But there's been a lot of times this year where the Ravens have been leading late in games, and they've ended up losing the game or let the opponent right back into it. And it's really concerning for a team that expects to be a contender in the AFC.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of knocked Trevor Lawrence earlier today, kind of a dumb fumble on his part, and just not taking care of the football, which I think he still has problems with. I know his numbers are a little bit better this year than last year. I still have him as a bottom third quarterback. Is that progress over last year? Sure, but still, I'm not sold on him. Great last drive. But I noticed the same thing that you're mentioning, kind of a prevent defense. Great throw on 4th and 5 or whatever that was. But they've been doing this all year. And on top of that, offensively, a couple of drops that it looked like I saw in the end zone while I was watching Red Zone, they're just not crisp. They have talent, one of which was Mark Andrews is pretty sure-handed for Lamar Jackson. I just can't have enough faith in Baltimore to bet them to win the game outright anymore.
It was a Mark Andrews drop touchdown. I vividly remember it now. I mean, Scott mentions this in the chat. Today was the only game this year Ravens had it led by 10 plus. Like they just can't salt them away. They used to be that team, I'm talking probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but they used to be that team that they'd be favored and they would just truck other teams. like just steamroll them, and really don't know what they are anymore, honestly. But it seems like so many teams are like this, where they're just going to inevitably play close games. And that's that. Last week, I did say that I think the Bengals are a lot better than people realize. I was really looking forward to unloading on the Bengals this week. If Jamar Chase is going to be back in, he wasn't. I did not end up with a big play on Cincinnati, regretfully, but I still think that the Bengals are very good, like extremely good. And people will dismiss this and they'll be like, it's just Tennessee. I also think Tennessee's a little bit underrated as well. And
so not sure if we lost Rob or if I'm still going. If we are, I'm now thinking that the Ravens are probably just on that cusp of being in the top 5. I mean, I think it's the Bengals, Dolphins, and then there's a tier below them of, the Ravens, the Bucks, and then another tier of maybe, Chargers, Vikings. It's not.
All right. I was wondering there if what was giving us problems, but Clive will rejoin us, and when he does, we'll get his input on the Cincinnati Bengals going forwards. I did notice this as well when I was looking at this. Patrick brings up a good point in the chat today. Bengals remaining schedule. We're getting a lot of commentary on their remaining schedule. It is tough. They're going to play a lot of good teams down the stretch. If anyone caught me on primetime earlier on Hammer HQ with Suma at the half, I did say that I think the Bengals will be in the Super Bowl in the AFC this year. I kind of like going out on a limb with stuff like that, but they have a lot of signs to me of a team that could take down the Chiefs or the Bills. They did obviously take down the Chiefs last year. And Tony says, if the Ravens don't blow out the Broncos this week, it's definitely panic time as well. We welcome Clive back in as we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals here, Clive. And I went through
a whole diatribe and nobody heard me. I thought I was still here because normally my screen blacks out. In this case, it didn't. So I'm with you on the Bengals. I have them as like the sixth best team now in terms of overall ratings, right below that Cowboys tier. So them and the Dolphins on a tier, and then right below that, the Bucks and the Ravens. But that's pretty much your top 9 to 10 teams right there. And they could have another year like last year where, variance goes the right direction for them. Their offense clicks at the right time, and then boom.
Yes. So for me, like I'm now posting weekly power rankings for the Hammer. It's something I wanted to do because I think we always get like an interesting chat about it. Every time I post, people are always like, I don't understand what you see in the Bengals. And I always think to myself, what do people not see in the Bengals? Like, I don't get it personally. Like, lots of offensive weapons, great quarterback, defense, pretty solid. I mean, they're struggling at corner, but they got DJ Reader back last week. They have a good front 7. They're just not a super deep team. Good special teams, good kicker. Like, I don't know what's not to see in the Bengals. So maybe there's someone out there that can convince me of them being frauds. We'll see. They do play a good schedule down the stretch here, but I do want to move on, Clive, and eventually get us to, our preview of next week and going through that. I want to save enough time to make sure we get through all the games in a timely manner. Monday Night Football tomorrow. For those who are listening, preview Steelers, Colts. Anything on your end that you like from a side or total perspective?
I'm wondering if there's still just a touch of value on the total left under. I know it's a low number, but I would not. It's enough for me to still consider. So depending on where you're looking, you can get 39.5s. They're out there, some 39s, but I still think there might be a little bit of value on the under. I'll be interested to see how it moves. From the total, it was 3. Pittsburgh getting 3 or nothing for me, so that was gone early last week.
I still like Pittsburgh getting 2.5 a bit. It's not anything crazy. I don't see much differentiating these two teams. In fact, I think I can make a pretty sound argument that Pittsburgh's actually the better of the two teams, depending on how the injury report shapes up for the Colts tomorrow. We know Kwity Paye will be out. We don't know about Yannick Ngakoue. We don't know about DeForest Buckner either. Probably both will play since it's a Monday Night Football game and they got in a limited practice. But Steelers are nothing. Again, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but Pittsburgh's schedule this year has just been a disaster for that team. And we've seen pretty clearly they can't compete with the better teams. but they take a step down in class and they perform admirably, and people are surprised by it. Oh, I didn't expect this out of the Steelers. It's like, well, because you're used to seeing them play very good teams. So I think that the Steelers are very live in this game, and they're offering up some value on the money line. I do agree with your lean on the under as well. Just not enough, not enough for it. I'm getting slack, by the way, on my Twitter right now for my wine glass. So I just want to tell people out there, I had an event at the end of October, which is called Halloween and Cheese. And it was at a friend's house who was hosting that does not have enough wine glasses. So I had to bring mine over there. They're still there. I haven't picked them up yet. So I'm going to the backup, but I don't mind these either. They're just much easier than like the stemmed glasses. Like, why do I need the full wine stem when I'm drinking at home?
Yeah. I mean, that's just another thing for me to break, to be honest. Being
Exactly.
clumsy. Yeah.
Exactly. This is just easy. It's like more like a regular glass. So I'm not going to accept the wine glass hate on Twitter. All right, let's get into it. For those first time, there are a few first timers in the chat here. I do recognize a lot of the names as well. We're going to go through game by game. And
stems are for squares.
Stems are for squares. That's a good
pretty
one.
good.
Yeah, I mean, they are breakable. Listen, people. It was for everyone that's out there. It was Jimmy the bartender, who I've seen in this chat so far. He's the guy you have to give shit for giving me shit. I'm not going to accept this. Not going to accept this. For people's first time, if it's your first time, we're going to go through game by game next week's NFL card rotation number order. We'll give our thoughts on where we think the openers are going to be and where we think that the market will move, which teams will see support, which totals, whether it's over, under, will see support. And we'll try to give you as much actionable info as we can without actually knowing what the spreads are in these games as of yet. So let's get the party started, Clive. We will go to Thursday night football, both teams getting the extra rest off of the Thanksgiving Day games. It is the New England Patriots hosting the Buffalo Bills. What we do know here is that Von Miller will be out, at least for the next few weeks for the Buffalo Bills, already dealing with some problems in their front seven. We'll see if they can get any players back, but Gregory Rousseau is also out for them, Tremaine Edmonds, AJ Epinesa. So the list grows, and they were missing their center, Mitch Morse, last week as well. Patriots hosting the Bills. What do you make the number here?
This is kind of tough with no Von Miller too, because I really don't know how much to rate him. I don't know. I feel like the Bills have been slowly from a market perspective, just dripping a little bit down further and further, to the point where I think there's probably a good amount of people that have them either even with the Chiefs or slightly below. Mm-hmm. I'm more on the even side. I don't knock the Patriots down off of what happened this week. I mean, at home on a Thursday night, I think maybe around 6, maybe 6.5. I think 7's too much. I even think New England takes money at 6.5, to be honest. So I think 6 is even too much, but it's more where I think maybe the look ahead was, but I think it comes down.
So I'm with you. I'm very, very similar to you on this game. I would say that I would probably have sent out something like Buffalo -6, and I think the Patriots will draw money. I think the perception of Buffalo is definitely not the same now as it was a month ago, especially with Josh Allen dealing with whatever even if it's like, it might not even be a thing right now, but it is a thing in people's eyes. I do think the Patriots will get support at that number. I don't know that they would at necessarily 5.5 or 5 or anything like that. And maybe that's the range where this number closes at, somewhere in that range. But I think New England is better than people give them credit for. I think they've struggled at times offensively this year, and people just dismiss them as like, New England, whatever. But they've, prior to this week against Minnesota, they've had some very, very good defensive performances this year. And I think that their offense went through this stretch of games where they were playing, like they played the Jets 2 times in 3 weeks. That's going to look bad for your offense. You're not going to perform at that level. So I think that this market, I think we're both on the same page here in terms of somewhere in that 6 range, probably. And Patriots draw a little bit of money, but don't take much more than like getting it off of the 6.
Yep, I'm with you there. I might have seen the total for this in passing. I don't know if I did, so I'll stay quiet on it. But what I have, I think, is probably where the number opens, and maybe it comes down.
Okay.
So I'll let you go.
So I'm just going to quickly, I don't have it up right here now. I wanted to ask what the total in the Patriots Vikings closed at.
41.5, I believe.
Okay. So it's going to be significantly higher. I'm going to say 44.5 for the total. And I don't know which way it's going to go. It's a primetime game, potential weather implications, obviously this time of year. I think that's just a good number, honestly, 44.5.
Yeah, I have 45, and I think the number comes down. So I think your number's probably better than mine.
Well, maybe the Von Miller injury impacts things a little bit.
Yeah, and I was actually impressed, maybe isn't the right word, surprised of how they opened up the playbook a little bit on Thursday against the Vikings. Mac Jones didn't look terrible at all.
He looked good. I would say that he looked good.
So that's probably why I ticked it up to 45, but I think the market might open it at 44.5.
We got some guesses in the chat. Bills -6, 45.5. Patrick points out Bills still have some significant D injuries as well, flying under the radar. I do agree, especially since they're isolated to the front 7. Jimmy says anything above 3, he's betting the Patriots. I mean, I don't think you would get much market support if this number for the Patriots if the number was 3.5, but I've been wrong many times before. Okay, on to the Sunday card, and we'll start with the early slate. The aforementioned Minnesota Vikings stay at home, extra rest, hosting high flying Mike White and the New York Jets.
So they're at home, and I mean, I mean, we've both been in agreement that Zach Wilson is just been a disaster this year. I'm not saying, you throw him out and you just completely discard him forever. But I think he just has looked overwhelmed. Mike White today did not. However, the Bears defense is terrible. Right. So all that being said, I mean, the Jets still do have a pretty solid defense. I have the Vikings is about 3 points better on a neutral. 4.5, 5. I don't think it gets to 5.5, but I'd say probably 4.5 is probably the right number.
So I think that this is going to have a very similar market to Patriots Jets a few weeks back, where I think the number in that game opened 4, and then it was all Jets money and closed around 3 in that game, or 3 bet back up to 3.5. That's what I think the market is going to shape up the same way. So I would say Vikings 4, Jets draw a bunch of money, gets down to 3, and maybe there's a little bit of buyback on the Vikings late at post.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think there's any way it goes in the other direction. So it's just a matter of does it open at 4.5 or 4,
or is it like it's weird because the NFL market is very different than it used to be. I've been betting my NFL for a long, long time, right? And I don't know what the true perception is of the Vikings anymore. Like, what are the Vikings anymore? What does the market think of them? What is like the odds makers think? Because like odds makers are more in tune with the market. I tend to think that the openers are a little bit sharper than they used to be as well. And I could just see a scenario where, okay, the Jets smoked the Bears today. The Vikings, people are still low on them. Maybe it just opens at 3, and then it's Vikings action from there.
Could be that could be the case too. And I think it's been 2 seasons in a row now that I've noticed as the season has gotten on, there's a lot less value that I see on Monday and Tuesday than I used to. Now, you're much more sophisticated in your process than I am, 100% aware of that, to the point where you're having these high volume weeks. To this point now, like where I was betting more earlier in the season. I'm now down to like 3 or 4 bets a week, it seems like. So I agree with you. I think the market's kind of sharpening up a little bit. And I don't know if that's because more people are betting Sunday nights too.
Yeah.
Like I have to turn off bet stamp now early in the day Sunday, so I don't see people betting like these look ahead numbers.
I'm with you. The things I have to do to create good content, I kind of had to like shut everything else out. Twitter gets closed, whatever. Don't want to accidentally see numbers, but it is what it is. The chat is like pretty consensus that the Vikings will be around 3, minus 342. Skol at 3. Vikings 3 moves to 4 is a prediction there as well. If you're watching on Twitter right now, you want to throw your predictions into the pool and get them into the comments, just jump into the YouTube. Look at the bottom of the screen right now, the Forward Progress YouTube channel, bottom center. You'll find us very easily on YouTube, and you can hop in and get in on the conversation. Total in this one, Jets Vikings.
I think 42.5, and maybe it gets a little bit lower, but I don't know. I don't think it's a big number. I think it's a little bit higher than what we saw New England, Minnesota.
So I agree and I disagree. I think 42.5, and it gets bet up.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's fair because Zach Wilson is that terrible. And I think people might see upside with Mike White. So that's a fair point.
I just feel like that's the case. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily right or wrong, but I think a lot of people going into today would have said, Mike White, Zach Wilson, probably the same thing. I think today's game is going to turn some heads, whether it should or not. I don't know. And then you got the Minnesota defensive injuries. They probably will get Delvin Tomlinson back, considering he was like a game time decision last week, but they do have a couple corners, Andrew Booth, Caleb Evans, that were out last week as well. So I think we're in line with where the number will come out at. I just think the market will push it up instead of down. All right.
Next.
Ooh, a barn burner. Denver Broncos hitting the road again. Back-to-back road games against Baltimore. The Ravens are at home in this one.
Denver is so bad. They're just so bad.
There's a market adjustment on this game. Like if this game was played today, it's probably 7. I can argue that it's maybe 6.5, just based off of what I think these teams are in the market. There's no way that number exists next week. I am going to say Ravens. Oh, can it be double digits though? It can't be double digits. Maybe it can. Maybe we've gone that far. I'll say Ravens like minus 8.5. And
that's what I've written down. Minus 8.5.
There you go. All right. 8.5. The total is going to be like 37.5.
Probably. I mean, so Ravens, Jags, 43.5. Denver, Carolina, 36.5 is what it closed at. So my 34.5 got closing line value. Well, Barry Horowitz for me.
I mean, that's the name of the game, right? Especially if you're betting earlier, you just want to see the market move in your direction.
Yeah, I know. God. So the median Denver total is 30, not including today's game. It's 30.
Okay, I stripped out week 7 and week 9 because of I guess one of them was a bye, and then one of them must have been the Brett Rippon game, right?
Yeah.
So I got a median of 33.
Okay. So they're 33. Baltimore's roughly 43. Yeah, 37.5 seems probably right.
What a time for my mouse to die. Like I never charged this thing ever. And we got the optical mouse is dead.
Oh.
So now I'm going to be like this ass that's turning to the side here to use the laptop pad. It's the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me that I never, ever thought could happen to me. And I can't even unplug the USB because it's like the way that I have this set up here, my camera's plugged into the USB. This is going to be a mission for the rest of the show, man.
This is going to get clunky.
This is the most, I don't even know where the mouse is right now. I have a 4-monitor setup here, by the way. No, absolutely. Okay, there we go. We're back on track. This will make for great listening for everyone listening in the car on the way to work tomorrow. I'm sure they're going to have an absolute blast. Me trying to figure out where my mouse is on screen. The Broncos offense is so sad, but there was an extra element of sadness today because there was a time where one of the O-linemen just ran off the field and started blasting Russell Wilson. Like just got in his face. I don't even know what they were arguing about, but like it's gotten to the point now where they're obviously better than the Texans, but they're almost in that Texans territory, if you know what I mean.
Like, are they saying "let's ride" in the huddle? Do you think that's what he was yelling about? Like, is that what's probably happening? Like, is Russell Wilson just like he's got to be insufferable. He just has to be insufferable at this point.
Eric's right. It was a D lineman. It was not an O lineman. Thank you for the corrections. I can't even blame it on the wine yet because the wine has not been doing anything. But okay. I mean, the Ravens are going to be like teaser central next week, right?
Oh, for sure. Like if it's 8.5, so that might be a reason for it to get to 10 quickly. But I think you have a hard time having the Ravens beat anybody by margin based on how they close games too. I mean, that is a factor.
Yeah. I don't know that I will have anything on this next week. I don't know that there's going to be an appealing play one way. Like what's the number that you need that you're going to say right now, okay, I'm clicking Broncos for next week?
I don't know, 11.
I would need higher. I might have a numbers edge, but I don't know that I can trust that number because it could be.
Oh, I got you from that. Yeah. All right. Where I'd be happy about it? Or are we talking about like just it's a no-brainer, like my 34.5 this week?
The no-brainer, like I'm giving you a number and you're going to absolutely 100% bet the Broncos at this number. What is that number?
13.
That's kind of where I'm at. 13, I'll take the Broncos.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
I could not do it. I just could not.
I took the Panthers 13 against the Ravens. And the Panthers ended up at a pick 'em at home today against the Broncos. I'm going to take the Broncos 13 against the Ravens if it's there. I'll be floored if it's there, but I would. All right. Let's keep it moving. We can give thoughts on this. It'll change based off tomorrow's game, but I can give some early, like initial thoughts on the Falcons hosting the Steelers next week. I think this is going to be very close to like a pick'em or Falcons a small favorite in like the 1.5 point range. Don't think it can be anywhere else really.
No, they're about even on a neutral. I don't downgrade the Falcons at all. So providing there's no significant injuries or anything, 1.5 seems about right. I'd have a harder time, I think, with the total, especially after today. Atlanta put up no points. Total closed at 40 or 40.5, depending on where you're looking. Steelers 39.5. I guess without giving it too much thought, even though Falcons totals have been relatively high.
Oh yeah, this is a tough one. So I would be higher than you on the total. Like if you gave me a total in the 30s between these two teams, I'd bet the over because the Falcons can't generate a pass rush. I honestly don't know what that defensive performance was out of them today, but maybe that's more indicative of Washington going forwards than it is Pittsburgh. Than it is Atlanta.
Yeah, I think it's probably 42.5, something like that. I mean, would you be hyped to take any side on 42.5?
So much of this is going to depend on how the Steelers look on Monday Night Football. If we're being honest, obviously we're using season-long metrics, but what we saw last is going to determine our thoughts. And I think we're both coming in around the same range of what it should be now. and then you adjust accordingly based off of what you see on Monday Night Football. All right. Titans Eagles will skip now while the Eagles are still in action. The Jags hit the road. They travel to Detroit to take on the Lions.
So you and I had the same thoughts. I just couldn't pull the trigger on the Ravens today. I thought the Ravens were the play. I didn't understand the market movement the way that it happened, at least not as severe as it happened.
Yeah.
Do you upgrade the Jags off of your number at all after this week, or is that more a function of just the Ravens underperforming?
It's a tough one. I'm just looking at the peripheral metrics of the game right now. So Jags have, pretty significantly, I would say, outplayed. They win the turnover margin by 1. The Ravens punted 1 time in this game. And Ravens offensive numbers, as bad as I felt like they looked, 49% success rate, 77.4% series conversion rate. They just basically got to the red zone 5 times and scored 2 touchdowns. And that's what cost them the game. Like, what did the Jags really do other than, I guess, hold the Ravens to field goals? And how consistently reproducible is that? I don't know. Probably don't see a big adjustment one way or another is a long way of me putting that.
So I'm thinking, Dallas 9.5.
Oh, did I say Dallas? I meant to say Detroit. That changes everything. Jags at the Lions.
I wrote that down that way before that even. Why do I have that way? What was I looking at? I just can't write. You're right.
I'll give you time. I'll give you time to crunch it. But go this week. And again, I haven't inputted Detroit's results. I haven't inputted Jacksonville's results. I would have made Detroit a 1-point favorite in this game. I think based off the results of this week, there's not a reason to really change that. And I think that's where the market's going to come in, as Detroit being just a very, very small favorite. The total is definitely going to be interesting in my eyes in terms of where this one opens up at, because Detroit played a high score. They somehow stayed under on that Thanksgiving Day game, the 28-25. But I think it's got to be at least 51 in terms of a total.
Yeah, so the median Detroit total is 55. Average is 53. Jacksonville's been right around 46, 47 in most games, so 51.5 probably, something like that. And I have Detroit as a 0.5 point worse than the Jags at neutral, so -1 is what I would open at.
Yeah. I think that the over drew a lot of money between the Lions and the Bills.
It did.
I bet the over in the Ravens and Jags today. It did not draw money. The under drew money in that game. But I just could not see the path to success for the Jags defense. Honestly, the Jags defense played about as good as they could because they held the Ravens out of the end zone a lot of times. And it still ended up being, going over by a fair amount. I think there's going to be...
Part of that was Ravens' failure, too. Not necessarily much that the Jags did. It seemed like the Ravens minimized their opportunities as much as, or more so than the Jags. I don't know. That's just my perception of what I saw.
Also, both teams, I think, had a 4th down fail at midfield as well in this game, which is obviously going to be a short field for the opposing team. So I think there's going to be market interest in the over. I could see this being what I call a double sharp game, where there's going to be drastic opinions of what both of these teams are. Like we saw the Jags draw a ton of money today, right? Like when that happens, I tend to think that that's like going to be prevalent again in the market the following week. I feel like that's consistent. So either I think the Ravens get faded, which I don't think is going to happen because we've already talked about that game against the Broncos, or someone's going to bet the Jags. And I could see this game flipping favorites. I could see market support on the Jags and then boom, money on the Lions. But I do think that there's someone out there that really likes the Jacksonville Jaguars right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say 50.5, by the way. So 50.5 is my total. Detroit -1.
Okay. So we're in similar spots here. Okay. The Commanders hit the road and they take on the New York Giants. Giants on extra rest, having played on Thanksgiving.
Now you had the Falcons today, right?
I did not. I did not have anything. That's one of the only games on the board where I had nothing. If I had the Falcons, I probably would have had a stroke today.
So that was not one of your heartbreaks. Got it. Because what I was going to ask is, from a quarterback play perspective, it just seems like Washington just keeps dodging bullets. Taylor makes some bonehead throws that just somehow magically don't get picked off. And I was wondering if he played better today, like visually, because I saw none of this game.
I saw a bunch of it. I don't think he played that well.
Okay.
I believe he didn't get sacked in the game. So again, Atlanta, not a ton of pressure. Washington success rate 51%, pretty strong, but they mustered only 314 total yards of offense and 138 passing yards. So very effective on the ground today, not so much through the air. I don't know what to do with the Washington Commanders because Taylor Heineke is now operating at like this level of turnover worthy play percentage that something's got to give soon. It just can't go on like this forever.
Is this game just a pick, or Washington's a -115 money line favorite?
I think the market is generally down on the Giants.
That's
as much
sure.
as they played on Thanksgiving, huge audience with the Cowboys audience, pretty much got smoked in the game, and they look like garbage. Now, if they get some positive injury news, I think there's going to be market interest in the Giants because I think Washington's going to be a favorite in this game. I think Washington is opening as favorites.
More than a point?
Well, Chase Young is probably in the lineup for Washington next week. The Giants have 3/5 of their O-line was out last week. Their starting two corners were out. Cordale Flott was operating as like their dime corner at the beginning of the year, but got elevated. He got injured in that game. So the Giants are dealing with big injuries. I don't see how they just are opened up as favorites or pick them. I don't. Not with the way that Washington has been on a heater, so to speak. So I'd say like Washington, I'm high. I don't know if I'm higher on Washington or lower on the Giants than like people in the chat or whatever, but I feel like this is going to be like Washington -2.5 and market interest on the Giants.
Okay. I mean, maybe I'm thinking of where it should maybe close. Maybe it's, Washington -1 or something like that. Daniel Jones did not play great. However, the Cowboys defense is pretty damn solid and they were putting pressure on him. So, still not the worst success rate.
No, I mean, it wasn't terrible because they started well, but you also are going to have Brian Daboll against Ron Rivera, which I think is a big edge in terms of, just coming up, devising a game plan. I don't know what to do, man. I don't know. I guess if positive injury news, market reacts to that and bets the Giants. That's what I think. I don't see any scenario where Washington ends up like -3 in this game without, I don't see that happening. I think it would just be the Giants would get bet at that price. Total?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see +1.5 for the Giants as the end number, and there's not huge differences there. I mean, it's different, but yeah. And then I don't have any idea for a total. I mean, Christ, if Washington Falcons are closing at 40, what does this one close at?
I know. Yeah, and it stayed under. I don't know.
38.5.
Like I would find the over appealing at 38.5. Would you not?
Depends on injuries, like you mentioned.
True.
If Chase Young plays, I mean, 38.5, I might be leaning towards the over based on some of the numbers that I have in front of me. 39 is maybe where I'm kind of like indifferent.
I'm at 40 and I have no idea if that's right, wrong, no clue. Zero clue. Like probably as little confidence as I can have in putting a total together. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah. It's not going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah. As a Cowboys fan, the star in the background here, I hate both of these teams, but as a Cowboys fan, you always hate the Eagles and the Giants more, and you just don't even care about the Commanders. So
they're the indifferent team.
Yeah. I don't want to say redheaded stepchild of the NFC East, but kind of. Okay, I've waited for this one. Deshaun Watson returns to Houston as a member of the Cleveland Browns. So it's a road game for Cleveland, coming off a OT victory today against Tampa Bay at Houston. Good luck. What would this game be with Brissett?
That's what I'm trying to come to. I don't know how much to downgrade Houston. I have Cleveland with Brissett roughly 1.5 below league average.
Where do you have Cleveland rated relative to Washington, out of curiosity?
Right about the same, a little worse.
Okay. So Washington closed 3.5 in Houston 2 weeks ago. I think that's a good starting point.
And that was a game that I think if we go back a couple weeks, I think that was a game that I thought should have been like 6 or something stupid, because I think I'm so down on Houston. This just hurts my brain. Like I now have Houston like 8 points below league average, and I think it should be worse. Like I actually think it should be worse.
Let's see where I was at going into this week. So you said 8 points below league average.
Yeah.
I bet against Houston today, and I have them minus 8.2 points below league average. So we're very similar on our Houston rating. Very similar.
So 6.5 on a neutral, but Houston's at home. Without 4.5. Because I think Washington's also moved up a little bit in most people's rankings. Like I think if you look 2 weeks ago, I don't remember. Washington was, I think, closer to 2.5 below. So 4.5.
You're saying 4.5 with Watson?
No. 4.5 with Brissett is where I would probably open the number.
Okay. Yeah. So now what's the difference between Brissett and Watson? And it's going to be moving through a key number of 7, right?
Right. So that's why I was maybe 7.5 and see where the money comes in.
That's what I was thinking as well. I still think it's pretty lopsided Browns action. Like who wants to bet the Texans right now? Who is going to put money down on the Texans?
And I think with Watson, like you said, like even if it opens 7.5, I would not be surprised if it gets all the way to 8.5 or more.
Is there a rust factor? I don't know, but like it's Deshaun Watson against Kyle Allen. Like I don't know.
It's a game you could bet on. What should you bet? I don't know. That's so.
Well, this is a good question in the chat, right? Like, can Watson be that big of a difference with all his time off? Everyone is just guessing. We're all guessing. Every single one of us. And it's who can guess better than the others as to what the value of Watson is in this game. He didn't look good in preseason. That's fine. I mean, it's been a lot of time since then. Okay, so for everyone in the chat, here's what I'm interested in, because I don't think you can move this through 7. Watson hasn't played in 2 years or whatever, or Watson's not that big of an upgrade. If you're getting 7.5 tomorrow, are you taking the Texans? Because if you're not, then there's lots of ways it can move through 7. So that's what I'm interested in for people in the chat.
Randy says he's given a 1-point upgrade for Watson.
Well, listen, if I use historical numbers, it's okay. Listen, a lot of people in the chat are putting their money where their mouth is, and they say if they get 7.5, they're betting Houston. Fair enough. If you're going to do that, you're going to do that. I would need 10 to bet Houston probably, and even then, I would be like, do I like what else? Would I just rather do something else? I don't buy into the revenge games or anything. Like, who's it a revenge game for?
Oh God! Oh, don't. Oh, let's not start with the narratives. Oh God! Yeah. Who wants it more? Who wants it more?
Yes. Like, does Houston want it more because they should have had Deshaun Watson for a long time? Like, I don't get it. I mean, listen. One thing I will say is probably the biggest home field advantage the Texans have all year in this one particular game. I would think.
That's reasonable.
You have a Houston team that can run on Cleveland, I guess. The Browns don't really defend the run all that well. True.
I mean, Cleveland's offense, though, is pretty much predicated on the run. And now, I mean, called Deshaun Watson rusty or whatever. He is an upgrade over Brissett. Is it really only 1 point? I don't think so. And if you gave me -6 Cleveland, I'm taking it in a heartbeat. Like I don't know how I couldn't do that more.
Yeah, I think. Well, listen, I don't know that I'm taking it in a heartbeat because again, there's so much uncertainty baked into this, right? But I'm probably taking Cleveland -6. I'm probably taking Cleveland -6. Like, if that's the number. It'd be tough not to. Okay, total in this game, which I think is just even like.
So Cleveland Tampa just closed at 42. And before this week, Cleveland's average game was roughly 51 points.
It's definitely going to close higher than the Tampa game because Houston's defense is so miserable. So I'm going to say like 46.
Let's see, Tampa. Looks like I have about a 4-point difference or so. So, yeah, 46 sounds right.
Okay. Spent a lot on this one.
And the market might be interested in going up, I think, because those numbers are with Brissett at quarterback. Anyway, 46. I'm going to 46.
Okay. Seattle Seahawks, after a very disappointing loss today, hit the road, and they're playing the Los Angeles Rams. Oh God!
Stafford likely to be back next week, or
why would the Rams bring Stafford back at this point? Why?
I'd probably just shut him down, but that's me.
I agree. Now, granted, they don't own their top picks, so maybe they just don't want to give other teams good picks. Who has the Rams pick? The Lions, right? I think this year. Someone.
I think so.
I think it's the Lions. Yeah, because it was part of the Stafford trade, wasn't it?
They made a lot of trades.
Well, I don't have a mouse to search right now, so I mean, but I think Stafford's done. I think this is the Perkins show going forwards, and God, like the Rams are so unbettable. Like, why do these teams have to be playing each other? Is what my immediate thought is. Could we have not? Because like the Seahawks defense is terrible. At least it seems that way now.
Yeah, Detroit's got theirs this year, and Seattle has
Oh, I think I lost Clive. I'll have to let him back in here shortly. Hopefully it's Clive and not me. Okay, I'll start talking this one first and foremost. We got you back? Yeah, we got you back. Okay. So before today, I would have made Seattle 3.5 on the road. Sadly, even though Seattle loses, I think the Rams are downgraded even more than Seattle is because they look so inept. And I know they had a chance to cover. I get that. But like their offensive numbers from today, 3.6 yards per play, 13 first downs, 82 net passing yards. No, it's tough. So I go ahead, Clive.
Are they the third worst team from a numbers perspective on your board? If the Panthers, or are they worse than the Panthers too?
Yeah, I think after this week, I will have the Rams in the bottom 3.
I mean, I have them at about 5 points now below league average, which is pretty rough.
Yeah, I was roughly minus 4.3 going into today. That number will go down almost certainly. So I think the Seahawks have to be at, I'm going to say at, 4.5. Seattle on the road.
It wouldn't surprise me. Before this week, Seattle was roughly what? Just slightly worse than average, maybe 0 or a quarter of a point, something like that.
Pretty much league average is where I have Seattle.
I mean,
do the Rams have home field? Do the Rams even get anything for home field?
Maybe a half a point if you even give them that. So 4.5 or 5. 5 wouldn't surprise me.
Randy says in the chat that Rams have to be second worst. He'd take the Panthers over the Rams. I would agree, but I also would consider the Bears to be pretty close to as equally bad as the Rams right now with their quarterback situation. So it's the Texans, Bears, and Rams that I have in my bottom 3. I can't see anyone wanting to bet the Rams, honestly. I can't see it. I think it will open at something that's already inflated and still maybe get bet up even more. So like 4.5. I agree with this comment here. Tom Lyons, 4.5 and Seahawks take money up to 6. That's kind of like where I see this going.
Yeah. It would have to cross the 7 for me to have any interest in the Rams whatsoever.
Yep. Total is very tough for this one, in my opinion, because Seahawks profile as a heavy over team, Rams profile as a heavy under team. I'm going to find this one to be challenging, as I typically do whenever we get these types of scenarios. Rams median total this year, 36 points. Seattle's 50. So it's probably in the low 40s, something like 42.
So here's the thing. 41.5 is what the KC Rams game closed at.
Mm-hmm.
All the way down from 44.
Yep.
So there was definitely like a downgraded interest in the number. So can you make a Chiefs game higher? I'm sorry. Can you make the Seahawks a higher total than what this just closed at, KC?
That's a very valid point. You have to remember the spread in the KC game as well, because it's more conducive to like running out the clock late in game too. I get your point, and it's very valid. It's making me rethink this a little bit. God, the Rams are such an unknown though because of their offense right now.
I'd probably open this at 40 and watch it get bet under. Maybe it wouldn't get bet under. No, actually, you know what? I don't know that it would get bet under.
If you gave me the Seahawks game at 40, I'm probably taking the over. Irrespective of opponent, I think.
Yeah. This is a really tough one.
I
This is
agree.
really a tough total.
This is the one we're going to be, I think I'm going to be wrong on the most this week. The next one, I have a generally good idea. San Fran.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
what did we say? Did I write this one down last week? I don't always write them down as we're talking. I'm trying to think. Rams Chiefs. We didn't have that one. Or I didn't write it down. I don't know what we would have said. Damn it.
Someone brings up a really good point in the chat as well, because I did notice this today. The Chiefs had 6 trips into the red zone today. They scored 1 touchdown. Uno. Finished with 36 points. That's something to consider. And that's why I think a low total takes over money, personally.
That's another good point. I'll open this at 42. I'll open it 2 points less than what the Chiefs. That's what I would probably do. 2 points less than what the Chiefs and Rams open and see what happens.
Fair enough.
I don't want to be a bookmaker on this game, on this total.
Agreed. I'd wait for other shops to open and then start copying lines.
Yeah, I don't want to open this one.
I'm actually interested if this is on the board, widely available right now, this particular game. I'm sure Circa has a number. They're very good with these openers. But I wonder if it's widely available. Okay. San Francisco at home against the Miami Dolphins. Ooh. Mike McDaniel taking on former team. San Fran, I'll start with this one. I feel very, very confident in what's going to happen here. San Fran is going to open as a 3.5 point favorite.
You can't see it. That's what I got.
Okay.
Damn it.
And they're going to
bigger next week.
And they're going to close as a 3 point favorite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. This can't stay at 3.5, but that's what it'll open at.
Yeah. It's going to open 3.5. Miami's going to get that.
Yeah.
I feel just pretty confident about that. Man, the 49ers defense looks really good, although a little bit misleading today because the Saints did have a lot of red zone time that just amounted to no points. Total.
This is one of those split scenarios.
Exactly.
If it opens 44, do you bet over?
Instant click over.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I'm trying to think of how high I could go where it would be like, yeah. It's either 45.5 or 46 where I start to pause, I think, a little bit.
I'm in the same boat as you. So I've marked this 45.5. I don't know where it will go from 45.5. The Dolphins lost to Ron Armstead at left tackle today. Austin Jackson, who came back at right tackle, I think got hurt today. I think San Francisco played a relatively clean game overall, but left tackle injury potentially to the Dolphins, mid 40s, 45.5. No clue. I think that's just a good number.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I don't feel strongly enough to go higher.
I can't wait to watch this game, honestly.
Me too.
Next two teams I have a very difficult time reading in market. Very curious as to your thoughts on this one. The Chargers on the road visiting the Raiders.
God, me doing anything with the Raiders is just a disaster waiting to happen. Chargers, Raiders. I don't really downgrade the Chargers after today. I think I leave them about the same, maybe a little bit.
So there was, I firmly believe that the Chargers, they won today, but did not cover because their center, Corey Linsley, got hurt. I think had Corey Linsley not got hurt, the Chargers were going to score on every possession after that. But after that happened, the Cardinals were bringing huge pressure up the middle. and the Chargers didn't know what to do, had no idea how to deal with it. That's a huge injury to keep an eye on next week for people that are still following. That's a big one. I have no idea. So I'm actually like, I can tell you what I think is going to happen here, but there was definitely a lot of anti-Chargers money in market this week, as there was a little bit of Raiders as well, though.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I knew what the look ahead of this was. I think like if I was setting this line today, I would have made the Chargers -3.
I think it's probably -2.5.
Yeah.
And the Raiders might take a little bit of money even at 2.5. I don't think it goes to 3. I think it goes towards the Raiders.
I think I agree with you.
I don't like it, but I think that's what happens.
I think I agree with you. Someone messaged me saying that they had listened to Simple Handicap with Adam Chernoff tonight, and that he said that if there was a release tomorrow in his Telegram channel, it would be on this game. So I'm very, very curious as to what the actual number is on this game.
Well, the last time I saw one of his releases, I waited for the steam and I bet the other side.
Well, I mean, listen, you could do that in any market. I sometimes you're like, I've told Adam this myself. Sometimes I want to punch a wall when I see his play come through, and I'm like, man, I really would have liked to get that a couple days from now. Sometimes it just creates an opportunity. It's a free market. People can do whatever they want. This total has to be high, though, like pretty high. No.
Chargers Cardinals closed at 49.5. Raiders Seahawks closed at 48.5. I'd probably split the difference, maybe 49. Let me see.
So here's what I'm going to say. You bet the Raiders Seahawks over, correct?
Yeah, I did.
That was a terrible closing number, I think. Like in the way the game played out, right? It was just one-sided, like it was just offense the entire game. There has to be an adjustment because of that game.
Yeah. Median Raiders totals 46.5.
Is it really that low?
Yeah.
Like their actual totals in games or what the final scores were?
What the final scores were.
Yeah. I'm surprised.
Arizona's 48.5.
Chargers is 49.
Yeah, this is I'd probably say this is 49.5.
Wow. You know what? You bring up some good points.
Who does?
You bring up some good points.
Oh. Well, that's new.
Well, here's like I actually wouldn't have thought that, but look, I'm glad you mentioned the medians and stuff like that. I'll tell you this. If you give me a total in the 40s in this game, I don't even have to run my numbers. I'm betting the over. Total in the 40s. I shouldn't say that. Corey Linsley, impactful player. But a total in the 40s, I'm going to have a lot of interest in the over.
If it opens at 49.5, I would have interest in the over too. I think it gets bet up. But I also thought the Raiders, maybe this week, the market realizes or agree. I shouldn't say realize, agrees with my perception. What do I know? I don't know shit. But I don't. Maybe it does open at 50.
I was going to say 51 personally. So this is a big difference we have this week. Our biggest, I think, of the week, because you were like 48.5. I was 51. Did I say Eric Chernoff, by the way, instead of Adam? I must have.
Did you? Or is there an Eric Chernoff?
Well, there's an Eric Bischoff. He used to be like part of the NWO and stuff like that and wrestling back in the day. Did I say Eric Chernoff? I don't think I said Eric Chernoff. I think I said
so
Eric
either.
Chernoff. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Oh, yes. Didn't realize this was next week. Bengals at home to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a rematch of last year's AFC championship game.
It's another good game.
All right. Yep.
Did this one get flexed or no?
No, it's it didn't get flexed because the Cowboys had the Sunday night football game. It's Cowboys Colts Sunday night.
Yeah,
football.
They're playing the Colts. Nobody wants to see that.
Well, you know what? They draw. They draw. Yeah. I would have flexed either. I mean, we have the KC game that could easily. They could have obviously flexed Cleveland Houston with the Deshaun Watson situation. They could have flexed Dolphins 49ers.
I don't know if that sends the right message. If you put on Deshaun Watson in prime time.
Probably not a path that Goodell wants to go down. Probably not a path that he wants.
I'm not the most woke guy in the world, but yeah, I don't think they want to do that. God. So this is on the road. Bengals, Chiefs. I have them like 5 points different on the neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just Chiefs 3.5?
Ooh,
and then
okay.
Bengals take money, and it goes to 3.
So I think this game is opening and closing 3.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean you could tell me I'm an idiot, but like I see
no,
a scenario.
I think it closes 3. It's just a matter of how much does the market really love the Chiefs at this point to open them at 3.5, and then that's the only question I have. I do think it closes at 3.
The likelihood that you had
juice 3.
You had them 5 points better this week, but there's the likelihood that Jamar Chase returns next week is high.
True, I did not,
and that's like actually a point.
Yeah.
Based off the way the market reacted to that news this week.
True.
Jimmy, please in the comments, you got to stop with the revenge. You got to stop with the revenge games. I can't, I rematching big playoff games from the previous year are definitely motivational. Yeah. I will tell you who wants to win this game. The Chiefs and the Bengals both want to win this game a lot. Irrespective of what happened last year. Now, maybe you got the vanilla Chiefs playbook this week against the Rams. It did seem that way for a lot of time, but both these teams want to win the games. I don't think this is right. JetBlue, Chiefs minus 4.5. I will click Bengals faster than that line could even get posted. I'll set line alerts for that specific one, and it will be hammered into oblivion.
And no, I didn't eat an edible.
I missed that one. I
did not eat an edible, but thank you. We're getting more interaction in the feeds and the comments.
Clive says we're getting more. Oh, I was going to say you cut in and out there really quickly. It would have been hilarious if you just dropped off right there at that exact moment. We're getting more interaction. See you later. I'm out of here. Okay. We'll get into the final couple of games.
We need a total on this one.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let's do the total first. 51. See where it goes.
I was going to say 50.5. 51 makes sense too. I don't know if this goes up or down though. Yeah,
neither do I. With the possibility of Chase playing, getting confirmed, I think it goes probably up, but I don't know. High totals tend to get bet that. I don't know. I just think 51 is a good number.
I do. If Chase is playing, so that's I'm good with that.
Or
if there's a high likelihood.
Yes, I think there is a high likelihood. If Mixon is out, I prefer the Bengals offense, being completely honest. No disrespect to Joe Mixon, but P. Ryan
takes away the idiocy factor. Like it like makes them play more optimally for what their offense is.
I agree. No big new injuries for KC today. Obviously, Kadarius Toney missed the game, but no big injuries to report of for today's game. For tomorrow on this channel, just want to let everyone know the same game parlay is coming back by popular demand. Way too many requests that we do that show again. We stopped doing that show. It will be Crabs Bets, who you've seen on this channel before, and it will be the DGen Weekly. That's going live at 12:15 Eastern time in the afternoon, where they're going to put together a same game parlay for the Monday Night Football game between the Steelers and the Colts. I understand the demand for same game parlays nowadays. Your voice has been heard. Flood the hammer on Twitter with any recommendations for content. You can also post it on any of our YouTube channels, and we will see it and we will implement it. So that starts again tomorrow, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel. 2 more games to round up the card. So aforementioned Sunday Night Football, Cowboys hosting the Colts. I mean, Cowboys just won a big game on Thanksgiving. A lot of people watched it. It's really going to be dependent on how the Colts play, though, against the Steelers tomorrow. And if they lose at home, this is going to be a double-digit spread.
Yeah, I think as of now, it's probably 9.5. And if they play like garbage, it crosses the 10.
That's pretty much exactly where I'm at. Like, de facto, same number. My total is 44 in this game.
I didn't do this game. Let me think. Yeah, 2 points worse than the Cowboys-Giants game of last week. That's probably seems pretty good.
I think it's more likely to get under money at 44, yeah. But the Cowboys Giants total got bet up a lot on Thanksgiving. So,
yeah, it did.
And honestly, the Cowboys offense is quite good. It's a pretty damn good offense.
Yeah, I say 44, and I think it gets bet down.
Okay, Monday Night Football. So, NFC South still wide open.
I don't know what to do with this.
You don't know what to do with what?
I don't know how to grade Tampa Bay. Like,
okay, I have lots of thoughts on this game. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Monday Night Football. I also don't know what the market thinks of Tampa Bay on a weekly basis. If I was to plot every team this year on a graph of like, this is what their market rating is, the Bucs are all over the place all the time. The Saints get shut out today. They lose 13-0. They got defensive players back. There's a chance they get Marshawn Lattimore back next week. No one wants to bet the Saints. No one wants the Saints.
Who wants to bet Tampa Bay given margin though too? Like it's under the same token.
People will talk themselves into betting Tampa Bay every week if they have to.
Tom Brady, yeah, I guess.
Right?
They're just a middling football team that's rated higher than what I think they are in the market consistently.
I think there's going to be a sharp contingent that wants New Orleans in this game. And particularly why is it might just be like recency bias, but the New Orleans defense has consistently shut down the Bucs Tom Brady offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a prevalent theme now. Tristan Wirfs hurt, right tackle for the Bucs today. What I think will happen is Tampa Bay opens just short of a touchdown, 6.5, and the Saints get money down to 6, off of 6, and then it stops there.
So we're on the same page, except I actually thought it might go past 6. Like Saints might draw enough money to go past 6.
That's what I'm saying. Like it would get to 5.5, and then like it's just going to fizzle at that point.
Oh, okay, all right. Then we're on the same page because I think what the market's going to put this game at is 6, 6.5, and I think the Saints are going to get money to the point where it's going to cross through the 6, and I think this has to be a super low total too.
When you say super low, how low are you thinking? How low can Clive go?
42 is that. I'm just thinking logically, which is always a mistake for me. I mean, Tampa's games average is like 37 points a game.
It's
and the Saints, when they're playing, it seemed like, given the Saints had all those injuries, like we've talked about in the past, right? Like they've been absolutely crippled. And when that happens, they've been putting some big numbers in the opposite direction. I don't know. I think 40 or 40 and a half, and I think it gets bet under.
Agree. 40 and a half, and it gets under. Clive, what's with your self-deprecation tonight? The people want to know.
It's because I didn't have an edible. No, I don't know. You lose a couple totals, the market doesn't go in the way you think. Like it hurts your feelings.
Yeah. I mean, you lose a total in the first half, it's going to have an impact on your life.
Yeah. I mean, this is rough. I don't know how. What did the game end at? 40-33?
73 points. Yeah.
Not good.
There's a lot of people interested in whether or not the Packers were going to backdoor there with Love in at quarterback. Looks like Rodgers hurt his ribs, I think, tonight.
Hey, it's very important to get the right numbers, because if you got 7 earlier in the week, you got to push instead of a loss.
I'm going to filter back to the games we skipped. We're not going to touch Packers Bears now, because we're going to have the Jordan Love possibility of the Jordan Love experience on the road, and who knows who's going to play for the Bears at quarterback. And I don't want to go through every iteration of who might start and who won't. But we do have the Titans traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles.
By the way, I saw a girl at the gym today who was wearing a Nick Foles practice Chicago Bears t-shirt. I think she was up next after Nathan Peterman. I think she was on her way to the Meadowlands to go watch this game. Like that.
We actually didn't talk about that at all. But if Nathan Peterman started, man, I was actually crying when I read that Trevor Siemian was hurt in warmups and that Peterman could go. That Peterman Bills 5 interceptions, like that's just like you'll never see something like that again. I mean, I never say never, but that was hilarious, by the way. It's like, just like next man up. Okay, Peterman's here. Like, who are we going to guess dresses the backup? It's going to be like an emergency QB wide receiver type of situation. Would have been hilarious.
Yeah, like Darnell Mooney, I think was probably next. Like I would have watched. I wouldn't have mind seeing that.
He got hurt today, Darnell Mooney.
He
could
did.
Be serious, yeah. Okay.
Tennessee at Philly, is that what we said?
Tennessee at Philly. I'll give you some time. I'll call this you know how college basketball has the added games. I'll call this an added game because we weren't going to do it, but the game went final here. Market is going to make this. So Philly closes. What do they close tonight? 6 or 6.5?
6.5.
6.5. Tennessee went to Green Bay, closed 3.5-point dogs. Green Bay is viewed in market as being better than Tennessee somehow. Don't ask me how, or at least it's very close right now, because Tennessee did win that game on the road. I'm going to say that it's a very, very similar number to tonight, and we see a 6.5. I don't know where that will go, but Philly minus 6.5 hung this entire week against Green Bay. Did not get bet to 7. I think that's the same number against the Titans. And I think the total is in the range of 44, because you have the Titans who play really slow and the Eagles who, very hit or miss. And I have no idea which way the market's going to go on this game.
I think if it opens 6.5, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to 7. But I think I'm down on Tennessee. But I think the market's down on Tennessee too. I mean, even at home, Bengals, no Jamar Chase. Like, that game closed at a pick today. Like,
I'm going to say this, and most people will disagree with me on this. I think the Titans are way better than people give them credit for. Like, I think there's no shame in losing a close game at home to Cincinnati, for one. People view the Titans as like just this completely average team. They're better than that. Like, they have a good defense. They have a good head coach. Their offense leaves a little bit to be desired at times. But I've disagreed with the market rating on Tennessee for pretty much this entire season.
So I have them as roughly 13th or 14th, but at that, like at a zero number, pretty much. I have them as slightly worse than the Patriots, and slightly worse than Green Bay.
See, like, I don't think Tennessee's worse than Green Bay. And now that's like, okay, they just closed a week ago as, 3.5-point dogs at Green Bay. What's wrong? Well, I mean, the outcome of that game.
I didn't agree with that either, for what it's worth. I didn't agree with that.
But okay, so like, there's like this middle range, right? Like, there's Green Bay, there's Seattle, there's the Jets. Maybe Washington's getting to that range now, but like, Tennessee's better than those teams. I think Tennessee and the Patriots are very close to even. The Patriots are probably, half point better on a neutral, but Tennessee's better than Green Bay. They're better than Seattle. Like, I firmly believe that.
I believe Tennessee's better than Seattle, and I think I had them as about even to Green Bay. Maybe Green Bay's slight better, and that's probably because I'm just giving too much credence to priors.
So like,
I'd probably open the 6.5 and see where it goes.
Like, people overrate the Titans. They're literally a public team. At this point, they've overachieved. 2 weeks ago, market caught up to Titans. How did the market catch up to the Titans? They were 3.5-point underdogs at Green Bay, and you're telling me the market caught up to them? They smoked Green Bay from start to finish. There's not, like, they have a very good against the spread record because the market undervalues them. Like, by pure luck metrics, they're not in the range of the Giants and Minnesota. I don't know.
It seems like Vrabel game plans, and this is, again, I don't watch a ton of Tennessee football, but it just seems like no matter obviously they want to get the ball to Derrick Henry. Like, I get that. That's pretty simple. But it does seem like defensively they make the right adjustments to minimize, or do their best to minimize, opposing teams' strengths. More so than others, which, like we've seen Dallas's defensive coordinator just stick to a scheme and not adjust. We've seen that. Who else have we seen that from? We probably saw it. Did we see it all this week that I remember? Like the Ravens, they don't adjust.
Yes. And I was going to say, this Sunday night football game, how many times are the Packers going to play man against the Eagles and watch all these guys run routes downfield, and then Jalen Hurts takes off.
Yeah, there's another one. Like, I mean, just so I think Vrabel, I don't know how much coaching metrics you have in your overall system, but
it's a secret sauce.
I would think he'd be up there.
Yeah, I agree.
So 6.5, I would say, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to 7, just based on the way the market continues. And I'm not saying it's right, but I could see that happening.
Well, I now have carpal tunnel in my left hand from using this as a mouse, which I never have done before. But we get through another show, another forward progress. If you want more football, tomorrow, a full preview on Steelers and Colts. You can join myself, my co-host Eric Eager of Sumer Sports, 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night. That is prime time. That will be live on the Hammer HQ YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Hammer HQ. Also, make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this now. If you're consuming it in audio format and you enjoy the show, please rate and review 5 stars. All of this stuff actually does matter for us in the long run. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Anything else to add, Clive? Or are we good to go?
43.5. That's my total. No, thank you, everyone. Like, really, the engagement this week was awesome. Please tell everybody and get more and more people in the chat. It makes it a lot of fun.
I may have said this before, but my dream for this show is to eventually have it be one of those where it is off the hook. Everybody in here kind of predicting where the market is going to move on a weekly basis. So to Clive's point, tomorrow, tell a friend that you watch Forward Progress and that they should watch it next week or listen to it or whatever. Obviously, it's tough for people to tune in live every Sunday night, but we do appreciate all of you out there who did tune in live for Sunday night. And
Jimmy,
these wine glasses are totally fine, by the way. I'm not a snob wine glass guy. I'm here. I'm drinking a Caparzo 2020 Toscana Sangiovese. Don't know what any of that is, but I looked it up on Vivino and it got some decent reviews, so I bought it.
A lot of vowels in there. Sounded a little Italian. It's got to be good.
It's got to be good. All right, everyone. Appreciate it. We'll catch you next week on Forward Progress here on the Hammer Betting Network. Good luck with your bets.